I want to put you right in the middle of a showdown I had while producing for the WWE, and at the end, I want to hear your verdict. Ready? I'm Mike Quackenbush. This is Till We Make It. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate. I've worked in front of the cameras as a pro wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and commentator. And I've worked behind the scenes too, as a promoter, booker, agent, coach, and consultant. And I share the fruit of all those experiences right here on the Till We Make It YouTube channel and with my patrons over on Patreon, where for as little as $5 a month, you can join our private Discord. You'll get early access to the videos that go to the channel, plus Patreon exclusive videos, one every week that you'll never see here on the channel. And that's just for starters. So if you want to take your support and participation to the next level, follow the link down below in the descriptus and join us over on Patreon. I just posted up 45 minutes of footage from a recent seminar that I taught just for my patrons. Today's video uniquely calls upon my experience working as a backstage agent or producer, and I'm headed back just a couple years into the somewhat recent past when I was doing that exact gig for the WWE's developmental brand, NXT. Before I throw you into the thick of things, let me set the scene for you a little bit. We are about to produce a live event for the NXT brand in a small Florida town before what is likely to be 200 to 300 fans. And on the hierarchy of importance, this event is at the bottom. It is just a live event. It will only be seen by the fans in attendance, and the footage will later be reviewed by the coaches at the Performance Center. It is not for television, which would be of higher importance, or an NXT takeover, a pay-per-view offering, which would be even more important still. So this is at the very bottom of that hierarchy of importance. That doesn't mean it's unimportant, it just means it's at the bottom. And it was at this particular event when I was entrusted with the responsibility to design the finish for a tag team match. And it wouldn't matter what was being asked of me at this event, you can be sure I'm going to take that responsibility very seriously, and I'm going to bring my own creativity to the process. And that is important because when I was brought on in this role, I was told by the boss part of the reason they liked me for this gig was because I was renowned for out-of-the-box thinking within the world of wrestling. And they wanted some out-of-the-box ideas in the mix. So, bringing the same serious professionalism I would to any gig and my own creative flair, I set to the task. But of course, whatever I came up with had to be approved by someone. For the purpose of this story, that someone will remain nameless. But let me say this, it is someone that I both like and respect. So I'm not here to try and bag on anybody, but I needed you to understand all of that so that ultimately I can find out where you weigh in. Now, let me explain exactly what went down. So, I went about the work of designing the finish as asked, and I got the wrestlers in the ring to walk through it to make sure that what I had come up with was physically possible given what their aptitudes were. Right? Some people, they are very flexible, and certain muscle-bound people are less flexible. So it's important that the physicality, the mechanics, could be accomplished by the wrestlers in the match. And you know what? It was possible. It could be done the way that I had designed it in my imagination. So then all that remained to be done was to get the lead producer to give this the okay. And that lead producer, someone I like and respect, came back at me with this, which I had never heard before, and boy did it sound profound the way it tumbled out of his mouth. He said to me, "Your only job is to keep your job." And I thought, what do you mean? The feedback to my idea was essentially, no, Mike, we aren't doing that finish you've come up with. And the justification for saying no wasn't because the wrestlers were incapable of doing it, or because it wouldn't be smooth, it couldn't be done safely. It's not because it posed a risk of injury. It had nothing to do with any of those factors. The person senior to me that night, the lead producer, knew that finish was not the kind of finish the boss would want. And I needed to come up with something a little more traditional and less out of the box, and then come back to get that approved instead. Your only job is to keep your job, was the bit of insight I was offered. And the full meaning of that did not hit me until later that night. So of course in the moment, I've got more work to do. The person who is senior to me is asking for something different. I can certainly do that. So I had to go back and redesign that finish, get that one approved so the show could go on. But on my drive home from that live event, I gave that statement, your only job is to keep your job, a lot of thought. So I've got two arguments I want you to hear, and then I want to hear your verdict. Here we go. Okay, up first I want to represent the lead producer's point of view in this argument. Why might he reject an out-of-the-box finish and then offer me, your only job is to keep your job? Well, there's 4 points here, at least 4 that I can think of. Here's number 1. You've been hired to do a job here, and if you can't or won't do it, there is a line of people behind you who are willing to do it and will do it to the boss's satisfaction. So come up with something that the boss will most likely enjoy or get out of the way. You can easily be replaced. There is no shortage of supply of other people who could be doing this producer job. And that's real. That's fair. Secondly, this more cautionary stance also speaks to the lead producer's job security, because the potential negative of something that is upsetting to the boss far outweighs any potential positive an out-of-the-box experiment could represent. Because ultimately, if something goes down that isn't to the boss's satisfaction, they're going to ask, who designed this? And then, who approved this? And who does that put in the crosshairs? Yours truly, and the lead producer that night that gave it the okay. And the potential negative ramifications of that just outweigh any potential positive. And this is also fair, right? And this third point really isn't even up for debate. The WWE is the industry leader. They post bigger profits year over year than anyone else in professional wrestling, meaning they have a proven formula which works. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Stick with what typically works. This is also a fair point. And there's one last point I want to share with you about this side of the argument. On that particular night, I was a very small cog in a big machine. But even one malfunctioning cog can cause a big machine to seize and to buck. And it isn't worth risking that turbulence or malfunction for the sake of just trying something new. It isn't worth the friction. Okay, I think I've done a fair job representing that side of the argument, and if I missed a really salient point, go on and drop it down below in the comments for me, please. But now, I'm going to flip the pancake over. Let's talk about the other side of this same argument, in which a slightly out-of-the-box finish has been shot down and the advice has been offered. Your only job is to keep your job. Well, I might argue this. If we can't try a slightly out-of-the-box finish on a low-stakes event, right? This is a live event. It's not television. It's not NXT TakeOver. This is the lowest stakes event. Then when? When do we bother to try these things, if not here, tonight, in this match? In addition to which, I think there's an argument to be made that it is a waste of the athletes we are paying and the stage time we are granting them if all we're bothering to do with that time and talent is ask them to play a pat hand, to do the most basic thing. Shouldn't we be demanding more? Another point I think we must consider is relevant to the social media era of wrestling. That's the era we're in right now, and we were when I was producing this match a couple years ago as well. Everyone is competing to capture fans' attention. And a memorable or unique finish has inherent value when we're trying to capture attention. If we value social media engagement and the shareability of posts, then a memorable or unique finish has inherent value, doesn't it? Last but not least, I was given this gig specifically because I bring out-of-the-box ideas to the equation. That is the value that I'm adding, and that's why I was selected from all the potential candidates to do this work. So if I'm not contributing the out-of-the-box ideas, in my mind, I'm not really doing the job I was hired to do. There are several nuanced arguments to place on this scale. We can understand the more cautionary stance of, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Come up with something the boss is going to like. Don't be the tiny cog in the machine that causes this whole thing to buck and seize. The negative far outweighs any possible positive. And yet, on the flip side, it's worth talking about the fact that if we can't try something new in a relatively low-stakes environment, then when are we? There's inherent value in a unique and memorable finish, especially in the social media era of wrestling when we're competing for people's attention. And even placing that aside, isn't it a waste of the stage and the athletes, if they are capable of this, to not give them the okay to try? Now, it may not come as much of a surprise to you. Of course, I fall on this side of the equation. That's where I've been since the moment it all went down. That doesn't mean that I don't understand the point of view of the lead producer and where he was coming from. So I'm going to place it in the hands of an impartial judge. That's where you come in. If you were in that lead producer position, which side do you think you'd come down on? Do you play it more cautious, or are you willing to take a bit of a risk? And I want to know why. Don't skip the why. Drop it for me down below right now in the comments. Joe and Nick, Brian and Sydney, Michael and Matt are just some of my awesome patrons. And if you want to see your name here, well, come be part of the team. Follow the link down below in the descriptus and join us over on Patreon. We would love to have you. And popping up right now is a video I think you will enjoy. I picked it for you myself.